Okay, so recently we've seen a few interesting headlines about Apple. One was about them potentially making a single chip that would combine cellular, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth into one for the iPhone. And then the next day, there was a report that they're working on their own displays for the Apple Watch and the iPhone. And so I've been looking into this, I've been trying to figure out, is this a nothing deal or a massive deal? And so after a lot of research and time put into this, it turns out the best way to understand this is with a chart. See, on the great scale of products that are made up of a bunch of different parts, there's a gradient. And on one half of that gradient is off-the-shelf parts. And on the other side is fully custom vertically integrated part. Now, most smartphones these days have a lot of things like off-the-shelf camera sensors from Sony, like the Sony IMX585 that they'll just sell to anyone. There's a lot of displays out there made by Samsung and LG, but they're calibrated a bit after. You've all heard us talk about Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and Qualcomm has lots of chips that any smartphone manufacturer can buy, and also lots of smaller parts like fingerprint sensors and modems and radios from companies like Qualcomm and Broadcom. And typically only when you get to the most specific parts of the phone, like buttons and chassis, are you going to have custom parts for your phone. Now, the iPhone's chart right now looks something like this. Now, most people don't think about this much, but it's actually a cacophony of different parts. It's like a mixed salad of different things. The camera sensors, for example, for all intents and purposes, they're just off the shelf from Sony. The main supplier of the battery for the iPhone is a Chinese company called Amperex, but it is customized a bit. It's actually L-shaped and multi-celled to sort of fit maximally in the iPhone's design. And on the far end, they do have their chassis, but also the fully customized A16 Bionic, things like a Taptic engine. So there is a big advantage to having parts that are more custom, especially in tech, because the main benefit that you get is optimization. What happened with the Macs, where they just switched from all those off-the-shelf Intel parts to those custom-designed Apple Silicon pieces. Like, that was a massive improvement for Apple, and all their computers took a quantum leap forward in speed, in efficiency, in battery life. Like, they're just hilariously better than ever before. And so the iPhone, well, the iPhone is huge for Apple. I mean, I know Macs are kind of popular, but most of Apple's revenue since it came out in 2007 has been from the iPhone. So Apple taking back parts of the iPhone turns out to be a very Tim Cook supply chain optimization story more than anything. So there are two stories in there, the displays and the chips. Let's start with the displays, because as you may or may not know, about 80% of iPhone displays are made by Samsung. Yeah, that's Samsung. Then about 12% by LG Display, and then the last 8% by others like BOE Display. So right now, that basically looks like Apple going to the display maker and going, hey, you guys make OLED displays, right? Okay, cool. We're gonna need a bunch of those. We would like, this curve radius and these certain cutouts for our little dynamic island, and we'd like 100 million of them. So if you guys could do that, that would be great, and we'll pay you up. And so that manufacturer, based on their own technology, will fill those orders using the displays they know how to make. And by the way, it's actually kind of super impressive that all of this happens so seamlessly. And on the other end, you don't really know if you have a display made by Samsung or LG or BOE in your iPhone. Now, if you want to get into the weeds, multiple sourcing is actually a pretty common tactic to reduce your reliance on one manufacturer. So sometimes off-the-shelf parts from several different companies are all pretty similar. So for something like the ambient light sensor, for example, who knows who makes that? And who cares, right? Like, as long as we get 100 million of them and they all fit in the iPhone the same way and they all work, then we're good. But it can easily go terribly. Like, think about the big differences between the Qualcomm-powered Samsung phone and the Exynos-powered Samsung phone. Or the hardware lottery back when we had the Galaxy S8, some of them had fast storage chips, some of them had slow storage chips. So with these iPhone displays, there is some calibration work that needs to be done, but Apple has handled the sourcing so well that we never notice a difference. That Apple is trying to move from OLED to micro LED and really stepping up the design and quality of their displays and their watches and phones in the next few generations. So when I first read into this, I actually thought it meant like nothing. Like, Apple doesn't really actually manufacture pretty much anything. They are a world-class design firm, and they do a lot of research and design and development. But then at the end of the day, when they actually make the thing, they're not manufacturing the iPhone or the pieces in the iPhone. They get a company to do it. They might custom design the M2 chip, but they're getting TSMC, the actual foundry, to build the chip for them. But it turns out with micro LED here, Apple kind of wants to put in a ton of the development with the technology in their own facilities. You know, they've already started spending a ton of money on testing and evolving. See, that's the main difference. Before, they would go to a company like Samsung or whoever, and they're already making OLED displays because that's their technology, and they would make a couple customizations, but that technology can be sold to anyone else. Apple wants to do all the development and stuff for micro LED, so when they get to the end of the chain, they give the instructions to someone and they make it, but that's an exclusive Apple technology. So they're kind of trying to get ahead of and own micro LED. Okay, hopefully that helped us all understand it. It helped me. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.